They did not touch, Mr. Harryhausen, on your family background at all. I know you were born in Southern California,
Yes,
and
that's correct.
a lot of people think you were born in England. So,
I know.
where were
Everybody
you
thinks.
born in Southern California?
In Los Angeles somewhere. I can't locate the house. I don't remember where it was.
Okay,
But I was born in Los Angeles and raised in, went to Audubon High School and Manual Arts High School
right.
and Los Angeles City College and USC Night School taking cinematography courses.
And what kind of work did your father do? Let's get a little
He
background on
was
the
a
family.
machinist
Okay, okay.
and he helped me a lot with my work.
Where did it start? You know, it's interesting when someone becomes as well known and as talented as you are. People have told the story that you saw King Kong and that was it. But talk about before that. Were you interested in art and drawing and cartoons? You don't just see King Kong and say, aha, and move on. You had to have some background.
That's
Course,
true. You're
right?
the first one who mentioned that.
So let's talk about before King Kong. Who influenced you, and were you heading in that direction?
Yes.
Because it sounds like, you know, you sat down in the theater, you saw King Kong, and your whole life path was made. And I don't think that's
No,
that's
that's
true.
not. And it's never that simple.
That's right.
You know,
So
that direct.
so where did it come from? The interest in art and
Well, I suppose
photography?
it started interest in sculpture from my uh, grammar school days. Our teacher used to make us model in clay all the different missions along California coast,
Okay.
and that got me interested in modeling, working with my hands. And then all through school, I suppose I leaned toward the art field and drawing, and I took life drawing in high school, and then I went to Los Angeles Art Center School for a while, and it gradually built up over the years. I never graduated with any honors in art.
Okay.
It was all sort of picked up as I went along.
Are you a good artist per se? Do you draw and sketch well?
That's not for me to say.
Okay.
I draw. I had to learn to draw in order to put my ideas on paper so other people could see them.
That's true.
And it was spasmodic, as I said. I'd like to have taken it more seriously, but I had other things on my mind.
These were tough years when you grew up. Were your parents encouraging you toward that field? You know, so many.
They didn't discourage me. I think my mother had in mind my being a commercial artist of some sort. The last thing in the world they thought of was the film business.
Okay.
And I used to make little dioramas of the La Brea tar pits, and that was our Sunday excursions. Go to the La Brea tar pits or to the Los Angeles Museum and see all the prehistoric creatures there. So when I saw King Kong, I saw a way of making the move, which never struck me before. I'd seen The Lost World when I was 3, I think, or 4.
Okay.
And I remembered parts of it very
This is
vividly.
the Wallace Berry Bessie Love one.
That's
correct?
right,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So that impressed you initially.
That impressed me very much because my parents were great film goers.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Now, it's been told a lot, but you saw King Kong, and now you had a way in your mind of thinking that I can make these dinosaurs and other animals, if you would, move. Is that what it is?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, you saw the good. Did you know Miriam Cooper at all?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
No.
Okay, so
I finally called up Willis O'Brien at MGM. He was working on when I was still in high school. I called him up. He was making war eagles at MGM, and told him
about
of my
what year
interest.
would this be? Give me a rough idea.
Gosh, that was in 38,
Okay, all right.
37, somewhere in there.
All right.
And he was preparing war eagles, and I told him of mine. Of course, very few people knew what this was about, animation. Very few people knew even how Kong was made.
Absolutely.
And there were no articles in the paper, a lot of misleading articles. So it was rare to have somebody interested in animation, model animation. So Mr. O'Brien invited me down to MGM, and I brought along some of my models in a suitcase, and it developed a friendship. We had sort of kindred souls, I suppose you'd say, and I kept in touch with him over the years, and finally when he was starting Mighty Joe, he chose me as his assistant.
The articles on you say that you won a 16 millimeter contest of some kind, and that's how you got involved with Mighty Joe Young. Anything in that at all, or is it?
No, not a
No.
contest. No, I won I entered some of my prehistoric models in the exposition at Los Angeles Museum, and I think I won a second prize or something.
Okay.
And that was one of the models I took over to the studio to show him, and he gave me some good advice. He says, your Stegosaurus legs look like sausages. You better study anatomy. So I did study anatomy.
Okay, interesting. So could we correctly say that Willis O'Brien was your mentor?
Oh,
if you had,
yes, Willis O'Brien was
without a
definitely my
doubt.
mentor.
Okay.
And then, of course, Marion Cooper and he worked together a lot, and the influence of King Kong has been enormous, as well as other Marion Cooper pictures such as She and The Last Days of Pompeii,
Okay, so
and The Most Dangerous Game. Those four films influenced me enormously, along with the German Metropolis. I was very influenced years ago by this robot in Metropolis.
Fritz Lang one.
Fritz Lang one,
Right.
yes.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Fritz Lang?
Yes, I met him once,
You
several
did?
times, yes.
Okay. Any comment on him, such a legendary figure in the business?
Well, I didn't know him very
Okay.
well. I just met him several times.
All right, okay. Let's see, I'm going to hit highlights.
And I have an exhibition now in the old UFA studios in Germany,
Do you really?
where Fritz Lang made Metropolis.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
And Dietrich did her leg swinging there.
That's right, yes, yes. That's some studio, the history of that.
That
UFO.
is.
Oh, boy.
It's now called the DEFA Studios.
DEFA?
DEFA, D-E-F-A, yes.
Okay.
It stands for something
Okay.
different.
All right.
But it's in Babelsberg.
You talked about the challenges of Panavision at the Cinecon,
Yes.
but in the press kit on Clash of the Titans, do you have that here? You did something called Dinerrama. Could you explain what Dinerrama is?
Well, we started out with Dynamation, as I said in there, that publicity departments in the studio felt that every new picture that came out, they had to have some new process because people were plugging megamation and circumation and everything under the sun, including Cinerama and CinemaScope. So they changed it to Dinerrama, which has no relationship to what my profession was. We were trying to establish, as you know, a new word for our process, because when you say animation, everybody thinks of the flatbed cartoon.
That's what you would think of, yes.
And a lot of critics, when they reviewed the film, would simply say animation, and adults would stay away from it because they thought it was for kids.
So what does that mean, Dinerama, in your mind? What should we think of?
Well, Dinerama is a vista, a long, wide vista, but Dynamation is the combination of dynamic animation. And that was why we chose the word Dynamation. Now somebody else, I believe, has copped the copyright.
So what do they call it today?
Well, they don't call it much anything.
Yeah.
It ended up as Dinerama, which has no relationship.
No. In other words, you were trying to get away from the animation term.
Yeah, the word animation is always associated with cartoons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you didn't want adults to think, oh, it's another cartoon, let's pass
Because
on
a lot
that.
of adults feel embarrassed to go to a cartoon for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah. That's changed, don't you think?
I loved Snow White. I loved Pinocchio. I would go see all of those.
Sure. Whether
Even
you're
the story.
50 or
no,
5.
whether you're 100.
Sure.
They're still entertaining.
Sure, absolutely. Let's talk about another very important person in your life, George Pal. What were the Puppetoons? What was that
Well,
about?
that was my first professional job with George Pal before the war in the 30s. He came over from Europe to make a series of puppet films for Paramount.
Okay.
They were called Puppetoons. They were first called Madcap Models.
Okay.
And He did about quite a number of them. I worked on the first 12. I was with him for 2 years, and he was a delightful person to work with.
Another major influence on you, would you say?
Not so much
No?
as Willis O'Brien, because his technique was very stylized, and the technique I pursued was more on the semi-realistic style.
Okay. So O'Brien, again, it stands far
O'Brien
above
was
Pal
really,
and all the other.
Oh,
He was your...
because O'Brien had the single figure technique where you would use one jointed figure and animate it on the set, where George Pal made replacement puppets.
Okay.
And they had to be highly stylized in order to cut them out on a bandsaw.
Okay.
So they were cubistic almost.
And you made 12 of the Puppetoons?
I worked on 12 of his Puppetoons, yes, the first 12.
Well, were they successful financially?
They were, yes, but then the cartoon became obsolete, you know, the second feature in the cartoon. And it got so expensive to make them that he finally had to give up and go into features.
And did fairly well there, didn't he?
Oh, he did very well with the
yes.
features, some of them.
Yes, not all, some.
Some of them were great successes.
Yes, okay. Let's talk about, let's see, George Pal. Oh yeah, this was something I thought was impressive. You said to the audience at Cinecon that it's very important that someone who does what you do understand acting and take maybe an acting course or lessons.
Yes, very much.
Explain why so important.
Well, because the technique we use, where you have your single figure intimately involved with the live action of the photoplay, they act and react to the figure, and a lot of times the actors don't see what they're reacting to, but through my drawings, they've seen the type of thing that they're supposed to be talking to. So you should know acting and to give gestures, to how to react to the other person, and all of that basic idea of stagecraft.
So when you went to City College and took some drama lessons, that was very helpful for you.
Oh, enormously.
Enormously,
yes.
yeah.
Harold Tierney was our professor there, and he had a very stringent course on tearing plays apart and analyzing them, and they had many other courses. Donna Reed and Lexa Smith were in the classes just ahead of me,
No
and
kidding.
Look where they went.
Yes, you didn't do too bad either. The other thing you've always given credit for, and I think a lot of music people appreciate that, is you say how important music is to your
Enormously,
work. All right,
yes.
tell us why that is so, and the way you collaborate with the musical people.
Well, the music is so important because fantasy film is visual.
Okay, that's right.
It's not intellectual dialogue or pseudo-intellectual dialogue.
That's right, yeah.
So you have to, the visual is very important, I think, to be accompanied by the audio. As King Kong proved that. Max Steiner's great score for King Kong was the first of its kind, original music for a film of that length. And it was so dynamic and so Wagnerian, so associated with the classics that it became an outstanding feature as part of the film. I don't think it would be the same film without Steiner's score.
No.
Because at that stage in film history, people were always, they were trying to cut costs by putting known music, Tchaikovsky or Beethoven or something, in the beginning and the end, and they seldom scored in between. Take Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde has the toccata and fugue under the titles, and then that ends with the end of the toccata and fugue. But there's no music throughout the whole film.
That's right.
And that was made about the same time. But it was a fine film, regardless. But a visual image like Kong, I think, is so important to have the right kind of music. And Steiner has been copied and so many times that all of a sudden he appears to be cliche, which is ridiculous, you know, because he originated basically the basic idea of scoring motion pictures in a certain way.
Yeah. You also like Miklas Rosa,
Oh,
correct?
Nicholas Roche's Thief of Baghdad and Jungle Book were supreme. It's a different type of music. It's more romantic type of music. Nicholas Roche has his own style. Bernie Herrmann has his own style, which is an entirely different style, and it fit our films beautifully because our films are of a dynamic visual nature, and he wrote this type of music that's very distinctive of Bernard Herrmann.
Yes.
So his style and the way of looking at things were enormously important in our films.
How do you keep, in the brochure on Clash of the Titans, it talks about the fact that you and Mr. Schneer spent 4.5 years of your life on this thing.
Yeah.
How do you keep things fresh and you know, engaging in your mind, being on something for 4.5 years? You know, I can't imagine 4.5 years on this movie and you're still creative and fresh. And tell me how you do that.
Well, it's not constant. For example, you have to spend a certain amount of time looking for a subject. You have to spend a certain amount of time getting the subject together in a suitable way that you can hire a writer to put it all together. Sometimes it starts with my drawings. I will make 5 or 6 drawings or 8 drawings, and then the writer will tie it together, such as Seventh Voyage. But Clash, we started with Columbia, and then in order to do it properly, it got out of their budget range.
Okay.
So they bowed out. And then we looked around for other independent companies. And finally MGM became intrigued with the idea. And it was MGM that suggested we put stars in our film. We never had big stars in our films.
Because here you've got Olivier and the biggest star in the
Olivier.
world.
Who else could play Zeus?
Yeah. Did you object when they brought you Maggie Smith, Olivia?
Oh no, we were delighted because they were. It was a part of the film, but still a prologue and sort of a thing that tied the whole thing together.
Okay.
We didn't object. No, we were delighted, but we never felt that big stars were necessary in our type of film.
Right. You really don't need them.
You don't need them, and you see today unknown people and Twister unknown people and in the many films that rely completely on explosions and special effects.
And should it be that way? In other words, we have probably the greatest English-speaking actor, Olivier, playing Zeus. Does that take away from your special effects, add to it, or neutral, or no, not at all?
I wouldn't think so at all.
No.
In fact, I would think it's a challenge. A lot of actors turn down our pictures because they feel that they're being upstaged by a dummy. I would have thought it was a great challenge for an actor to try to not be upstaged by a dummy.
Yes.
Look at King Kong. King Kong is a big star. The name is synonymous with power and spectacle, and it's remembered as much as Garbo or Gable or Crawford, and he was just a dummy, you know?
Yeah.
So that proves you can, other than the human person, you can make a star out of a simple dummy.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, a toy, a model.
Yeah.
In fact, I always associate it with the ancient alchemists who created the perfect homunculus. Paracelsus was supposed to have created, you know, the little man in a bottle by mandrake root and chemicals and bring it to life. And it's been used in various films in the past. And we used it in one of our films, the idea of the homunculus. Very few people know about it. They laugh at it, of course, instantly. But it was part of the whole growth of chemistry and alchemy. It probably had a great many symbols to it that have been forgotten.
On this picture, you're listed as producer also with Charles Schneer.
Yes.
Does that mean you took the role as a producer also? You got some money together, you hired people?
Well, I've always been completely associated with every picture I've been, but I didn't never claim credit for it.
But here you're listed as producer
Yes,
with Schneer.
Well, and the last 3 films.
The last 3,
But I was always in on the picture right from the beginning. In fact, I would bring many stories. 20 Million Miles to Earth was a story I brought in and worked on very seriously before it was produced. And Seventh Voyage of Sinbad.
You brought that also.
I brought that in, and the Golden Voyage, I wrote the 20-page outline of how it would progress, and Eye of the Tiger. And I worked with the writer on all the scripts, every script we've worked on.
Are those your so-called sweatbox sessions?
Yeah, we have many sweatbox sessions where Charles Schneer and myself and the writer tear the script apart. He'll write 20 pages, and then we'll say, well, we think we need this at this point. We think we need that. And we'll each throw in ideas stimulated by each other. And that's very important. Of course, the writer gets all the credit in the end, but
yes.
By putting them together. And that's his job, is to put all these ideas together. But they don't necessarily start out with a writer. In the case of Clash of the Titans, that was purely Beverly Cross's concept, because he lived on the Greek islands for some time. And
the husband of Maggie Smith.
yes, that's
right,
correct.
That's right.
And he lived years ago on the Greek islands, and he became very intrigued with Greek mythology. So he brought in that, and he contributed a great deal, of course, to Jason and the Argonauts. Greek mythology is a natural for Dinermation.
Oh, couldn't be better, could it?
Because I wanted, as I explained at the lecture, I wanted to get away from just destroying cities all the time. It got monotonous.
Yeah, you leveled them all, San Francisco,
I think,
New York.
Mother Nature can do it better with an earthquake.
Yes, 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 as was proven here in California.
You can say that again. I hope this building is substantial. It looks very substantial.
Why does the Schneer partnership work so well? The two of you almost seem like a perfect, couple. Perfect
I can't
partnership.
analyze that, nor I think many people can. It's just one of those things that happens.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if you try to analyze it, you analyze it out of existence.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, good point.
You can't. When one is close to subjects like this, you don't sit there and analyze it. Other people on the outside, hindsight.
Film historians do. They'll write books on it and take it apart from every angle.
But it just happened to work. We were both interested in making films that were different than the average film of that day.
Yeah. I'll ask you one final question. Does it disappoint you that the work that you have done for so many years, it's such good work, in a way has been replaced by a computer? I'm disappointed when I see that. People today tell me, you don't need to know about acting, anatomy, you sit down in front of the keyboard.
But you do if you're a computer. That's one of the problems, that the computer has to be guided by an intelligence, and that intelligence has to have experience. That's why they get animators to come in and do it.
Okay.
They don't just have technicians who know how to push buttons.
So in other words, what you're saying is you need someone like yourself and a computer person. That's the team.
Yes,
Is that correct?
To work things out together so that they make sense and dramatic-wise. And it's not. I don't resent the computer. I think it's a wonderful tool. I think it's a great tool for, but just a tool. It shouldn't be the be-all and buy-all anymore. Look at Jim Henson. Revived the hand puppet, which goes back to ancient Greece.
Yes, yes.
And the Thunderbirds revived the string puppet, and Aardman Animation revived claymation with their Wallace and Gromit and Creature Comforts. So there's room for everything. After all, what is the end product except to entertain?
That's
now, if
right.
you can entertain with a yo-yo, use a yo-yo.
Sure, yeah, that's right, doesn't he? There's a long stretch from the yo-yo to the computer.
It is, but the computer can do remarkable things. Of course, I was brought here to do a cameo in the picture, the remake of Mighty Joe Young. And most of it will be done by computer and animatronics and Rick Baker's glorious interpretations of gorillas, and it should be a striking film. I had a tour of Dream Quest, and it's remarkable what the computer can how you can build. It's almost spooky because you're building a three-dimensional image on this flat screen. It takes a lot of different processes to do it, but it's still rather. Now they found a way of putting hair on the grill. I wish they could on my head, but
Mine too.
but the man who was putting hair on the gorilla didn't have much hair either.
Why didn't he just help himself to a
That's
little?
right. So there are limitations, but they can now put very convincing three-dimensional hair on these images they create by electronic. So it's a miraculous thing. You've got to take it all in perspective. That from the time that Willis O'Brien initiated stop-motion photography in the 1915, I think he started.
Did he go back that's
he goes back. He started with Edison Company, and he was one of the first in America to do stop motion. And there were people in Europe that were doing it, like Starovich, and various other. Russia made a film about 1935 called The New Gulliver, and they had hundreds of puppets in it, all stop motion. So this is a medium that goes back in time. But it was never as popular as the cartoon because it couldn't be departmentalized very easily at the time. So the cartoon sort of took over. But Willis O'Brien, as I say, started the snowball down the hill. I tried to carry on, and ILM picked it up, and all these other wonderful computer companies and special effect companies in Hollywood are carrying the ball through in a different way. And it depends on the time factor. What the 50s, people were less critical than they are today. Today, people, so much exposure has been given on how to make a film that I think it spoils it. I was so hypnotized by King Kong because I didn't know how it was done until many years later. But I think there's too much. I don't think the public should worry about how it's done, just what the effect is on the screen.
Sure, just have fun and enjoy it, right?
Enjoy
When
it.
they tear it
Just like
apart and analyze
if
it.
a magician tells you how he takes the rabbit out of the hat, you don't care much. I mean, why bother to look at it?
Right.
Again, you know he's done it by trickery.
Yeah. So that doesn't disappoint you coming from your background and taking Willis O'Brien forward. The computer does not put a bad taste in your mouth. I thought it might.
Oh, it shouldn't, because it's, again, progress of electronics. Electronics is taking over the world, you know. And I think it's, in a way, it can be a dangerous thing, and it can also be an advantage. I guess the rocket, the space program has developed mostly the electronic field to what it is today.
Yes, amazing today.
Yeah.
You know, with going to Mars, things that you were
Sure.
drawing, they're now
we
doing.
talked about this in the 50s, you know, in the 40s. In 38, when I joined the science fiction club, Ray Bradbury was a young aspiring writer, and he was selling newspapers on the corner on roller skates. And he was trying each Thursday, he would write something for Imagination, which was the local magazine. And we talked about space platforms. We had Egyptologists join the club. We had rocket experts who were experimenting with rockets. Everybody thought we were a little funny upstairs, and because we talked about going to Mars and going to the moon, and now it's an actuality. So we were way ahead of our time.
Sure were. How does that make you feel when a man landed on the moon, as you know, in '69?
Well, we had just finished that film, First Men on the Moon, an H.G. Wells story.
That's right.
And it was a thrill that they used our introduction of the picture for showing how the space module would separate and go down to the moon. So that was used, that we had made for the film, was used for the introduction on television.
Must have made you feel proud, no?
Made us feel proud.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding. You're a real visionary to see that many years into the future. You know, it's
well, it's hard to say visionary. I suppose we were all sort of young people interested in the future, and in H.G. Wells did a book years ago which was made into a film by Alexander Korda called Things to Come, and that always stimulated us. The future, what is it going to bring? You can't just mark time on a treadmill. You have to go somewhere else, otherwise the whole populace would become bored. I think they're coming bored now because the age of the irrational mind is coming in now. And that's rather frightening, I think, due to all the bombardment of these boxes up there and
500 channels.
500 channels to choose from, decisions all day long of whether to look at television or go out and fish or something, or talk to your fellow man.
Right.